So welcome to this video on Satellite from Rossum Electro-Music. In this video, we're just going to look at some patches to show different patches that we can build up around this complex modulation source that is Satellite. Although this is entirely a standalone module, it's nice to look at this as a smaller version of Control Forge, which I've also got some content for and have more content coming. There's more content for Satellite coming as well. Control Forge has all the editing on board and we can create lots of patches, but you can download patches into Satellite from the web and user patches. You can get them on and off. We can influence this over gate and CV and get triggers and gates out. We can sequence through the modulation, not only within the patch, but within the different presets and patches themselves, so we can get some gorgeous complex modulation that you can really tailor to what you want, or kind of randomly just influence and get more unpredictable and still quite complex results out of this thing. It's been great as it's not an envelope, it's not a sequencer, it's kind of a hybrid of the two. So let's get into some patches. So here's the first patch. I'll explain the patches briefly to show what's going on Satellite. That's the important bit that we're showing off here. But if you want more of an explanation as the sound sources, the processing, the effects, the other things in the patch, go check out my Patreon page, as those guys are getting some exclusive content that won't go public on this channel. So this first patch is little random sort of pops and particles of noise being processed by rings that you can see on screen. I've got the outputs going into the Mordax data. This is positive, this is negative, so you'll see the scope sort of give us the mirror image for the negative output. I'm going to influence this with some CV. It's going to work when we hold a gate. And let's just hold a gate to see what's happening. This is a looping envelope that will loop as long as a gate is held, and then slew down to nothing like a release stage on an envelope as soon as the gate is removed. This is influencing various sound parameters in the patch. Let's plug in a random gate. We can influence the timing of this with the encoder. But let's plug in some CV into the time scale. Turn up this CV. I'm just using Rabid Elephant's knobs to influence the gain and offset of this CV. So that's the first patch. Let's move on to another one. So this second patch is a preset named Audio Rate. I've got the positive and negative. Positive is green, negative is blue, and the random trigger is yellow. Let's actually unpatch my modulation. This is my core sound. Now the trigger is going into the volt per octave on this noise source on my oscillator. So that's this yellow trace. Now the positive, the green, is modulating volt per octave. And the inverted is modulating the timbre. We can invert that on the module. So this is the blue signal modulating the noise timbre. Here's the FM. And trigger back to volt per octave. A little bit of spring reverb in the background. Now as this is labelled audio rate, let's crank that rate back up. and the gate input will give me a trigger out. So we've got this combination of random noise, different curves in between these different steps. We can re-trigger these. So there's another patch. So this patch is a vowel mode on an oscillator. I'm using the output to modulate the vowel formants and timbre, and I'm taking the trigger out, which is this little yellow spike on the Mordax data scope, to trigger an exponential decay to also move the sort of glottal path and throat on this vowel oscillator. I'm splitting the signal out into a distortion as well. The gate will reset this sequence. And this is the seek starter, the sort of basic pitch sequence. We're actually taking the modulation out to pitch as well. So this quantized pitch is what's coming from satellite, as well as using the same signal, which I'm classing as my volt per octave pitch, to modulate the timbre and creating some more modulation. I have a sample and hold going into the pink trace that's not as visible on the data into the time scale to speed up and slow down this patch. So let's check it out. I should say that the actual output of the satellite, the inverted version, is going to control the LFO speed, controlling the level of the distortion layer. That's why per note we're getting pitch specific LFO speeds on that distorted sound. Now this patch is a noisy one, but a fun one nonetheless. Taking out the CV influence and gate influence over satellite, this preset is the 4 triangle LFOs, or 4 stage triangle LFO. Stage 3 and 4. Cycle, just by default. This is the triangle LFO up top. You can hear this modulate in my oscillator, dragging things around. Basic triangle LFO. Now when we hit it with a gate, it moves to loop in steps 1 and 2. A slower LFO. This is all one modulation out and one modulation into the volt per octave on my oscillator. See the oscillator underneath. Now I can influence rate. Still got to loop in 1 and 2. Maybe I should repatch it and make some dubstep wobbles. Gate I'm going to have on this offset, just because I want to play around with the offset for rate and the gate signal on knobs. Again, just another fun patch. It's great. I mean, you could do this with 2 different LFOs and a switch and splitting the rate between them and the gain between the switching, but this is all in one module, and this is a rather basic patch but still really fun for satellite. There's loads of stuff this could potentially do, and these patches are just an introduction. Now both Control Forge and Satellite can have a random level per step and a random time per step. This random preset is kicking out this green line on the Mordax data oscilloscope. This is modulating the Morpheus filter, and let's have a listen to that. Now we can see in the corner of the screen that the actual steps have a different curve and sort of interpolation between values. But because these are random, some are curving, some are stepping, the times are changing, their levels are changing, and we can see and hear that. We've also got this random trigger, which to sort of smooth it out, I've got going into an envelope. Let's turn that up and listen to the influence on the patch. So this is already random, but let's patch up some feedback for the first time in these patches. I'm going to take the negative output and put that into the time scale. So we've now created some feedback, and we've still got the random per step in this little 3-step random modulation preset, but this just creates larger variations, longer high times, some quick little bursts of lower voltages. It just creates a little bit more influence and interaction. With this playing away, let's add a kick drum and some sidechain. So thanks for checking out these satellite patches. Hit like, hit subscribe. Watch out for more videos coming from Rossum Electro-Music with an overview of the control forge and some more stuff with both that and satellite together. If you want to see how all of these patches have been made in detail, what the sound source was, what the modulation was, where these cables that are going out and off screen are going, and what I'm using, go and support me on Patreon, because I'm making exclusive videos for those supporters that go beyond these overviews and patches and break down the whole sort of ethos of the patch, what the intention was and why I was using what I was using and what result that achieved. We can explore these patches in more detail and you can check that out. Patreon link is below. Thank you for your support, be that here, just hitting like, sharing this with your friends, or going on to Patreon. You're all awesome. Cheers.